Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the weekly book tip where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. If you're new here, this is where I talk about my reading for the last week, some basic stats and the books, and occasionally I have a beverage. Usually it's supposed to be tea, but the last couple of months have been not so great in terms of me having the will and energy to actually make the cup of tea before I sit down and film. Usually it's just the effort of getting makeup on and getting the equipment ready to film. So this morning we're going with Sprite because I need the sugar. And it's the first official day of my 2 weeks leave, long service leave that I've taken. So I've kind of in that weird spot where I've spent all week kind of anticipating this, and now my energy levels are completely below my average. So we are going to bring them up by talking about my favorite things, which are the things that I've been reading. This is my reading week from the 15th until the 21st of April. I nearly said April. August. The 15th to the 21st of August. Woohoo! I suppose we just need a disclaimer at this point that any and all completely random nonsense that may come out of my mouth in this video is purely down to tiredness, but I'll try to be as accurate as possible. I read 10 books this week, a total of 2,460 pages, which is a really nice round number. I had 5 rereads, 1 DNF, and 0 books for projects. Oh, actually no, the DNFs was 2, and one of those was for a project. Again, we're going so well. So normally I would have a section on kids review titles. I have read 3 of them. One of those was actually a reread as well, but because those books don't come out until the first week in September, I'm still going to hold off on talking about them. But yes, I have reread one of the kids' review titles twice already because I read it with my class in 6 days, because that was the time that I had left between getting the book and going on leave. They were excited. I was excited. We're all very happy about this. As for my rereads, all of my rereads were the rest of the Innkeeper Chronicles series by Ilona Andrews. So One Fell Sweep, Sweep with Me, Sweep of the Blade, and Sweep of the Heart. The project book DNF you will hear about in a video very soon. For those who would like to know, I'm doing another Tri-Chapter Revisited, so I'm going through all my old Tri-Chapter books that I said that I would, read that I haven't, and randomly trying them. I did DNF one of them. I'm potentially going to DNF a second one today because I keep putting off starting it. So we shall see. We shall see. But that leaves me with 3 books that I am going to be talking about in this video. Starting off with a middle fiction title, The Boy and the Dog Tree by Fiona Wood. This was a book, I can't remember how I heard about this or why I picked it up, but it was one that I was intrigued by. And as per usual with a lot of these books, it's usually kind of very general information that I have about them before I start, and I don't tend to read blurbs. This is either a very green flag thing about me or a really red flag thing about me, but I don't read blurbs. So this is the story of Mitch, who has kind of had his entire life uprooted. His parents both work in the film industry and are currently working overseas, but they were planning on moving from Sydney to Melbourne. So Mitch and his sister have moved in with their gran while his parents are overseas on a project. And Mitch is very unhappy about it. He's had to leave his best friend, his school, he's moved to a new school, and he's being bullied there by one of the people in his class. But Mitch has discovered this old oak tree that kind of is on the path between home and school, and every time he goes past it he swears that the tree is growling at him. And Mitch confesses a lot of his big feelings to this tree, including the fact that he would love to have a dog. And then one day this giant shaggy black dog emerges from the tree and comes to stay. The dog's name is Argos, and Argos is really I suppose in a lot of ways a metaphor for Mitch finding the courage and the strength to be able to stand up for himself and find his inner courage and to cope with the changes that are happening in his life, because Argos keeps saying that he's here for now and that Mitch is his boy. Argos is not Mitch's dog. And it's a really, really interesting story because Argos is quite clearly not a real dog in the same sense of pet dogs and likes to go wandering around the town. And so the town are terrified of this giant black dog who steps in and saves kids and stands up for individuals who need it and who steals food from picnics, but is very big, very scary. And so there is basically a dog hunt for this strange dog that seems to be terrorizing the town. And Mitch and his new friend are trying to stop that because they care very deeply for Argos. It is delightful and a really wonderful kind of heartwarming story. It'll tug at your heartstrings and you get very attached to Argos, because I know I definitely did. Then I read Scoring a Sweet Thing by Jodi, which is a queer hockey romance novella. We have Remington, who is a goalie, and he is quirky as many goalies are. The one thing I can say about Remy is that he is basically a golden retriever puppy. Like, take that golden retriever energy and just multiply it by 10. He's also a marshmallow enthusiast who carries marshmallows around constantly with him. And he names them. But he is trying to get out of being part of his team's bachelor auction this year. He's been part of it before and he doesn't want to do it this year. And he's basically been told, if you can bring a date to the event, you don't have to be part of it. And so he ends up on an app, and there he meets Bailey, who is a tattoo artist who is also very kind of introverted and shy, and is not someone who really likes to go out. He kind of just likes his life. But he and Remy meet up. They both agree to have this fake date experience because they get along really well. They enjoy each other's company, and Remy amuses Bailey to no end. And then they fall for one another. Now, this is part of one of the Heart to Heart anthologies. So this is all the stories in those anthologies are based around a dating app called Heart to Heart, which is both about finding a partner, but also in this particular story, they've opened up a feature for finding friends and people to connect to. And so that's kind of how this all works. I do have the full anthology of this as a paperback, so that's probably going to be one of the anthologies that I include for my anthology diaries. But Jodi is releasing this on her website, and I got an early copy of it, so I couldn't wait, and I just read it on its own. So I will be rereading it in the future. And then the last book that I read this week, and this took me a while to read it. It's not very often that I start a book, put it down, and then, wait a couple of days before coming back to it. But it just turned out that my brain wasn't in the right place for this book, even though I desperately wanted to read it. And that is Unbound by Peyton Corinne, which is part of her Undone series. This is book 3. I've read book 1. I haven't read book 2, and I don't really have an interest in reading it. But this one I originally had as an arc from NetGalley, but the formatting on it was atrocious and I couldn't read it. But I was determined to eventually come back to it, which is why I purchased a copy of the book. Also, the cover is just stunning. The new covers for this series are beautiful. Although there is some artwork inside that is just not my style of artwork. And it kind of, for me, is kind of jarring. It's very angular. I don't know, that's just how my brain works. This is a dual timeline college hockey romance between Bennett, who is a neurodivergent goalie. He is autistic and he also has OCD. And there's some really great conversations in here around how his OCD presents. And also Paloma, who is a young woman who Bennett met at college. They met because she was working as one of the behind the scenes crew for his college hockey team. They strike up a friendship. So we're constantly going backwards and forwards between the moment they first met and the current day where they're separated, despite the fact that they were in a secret relationship for a number of months. This is a very hard-hitting book. We find out that as a child, Paloma suffered parental neglect and eventually ended up being groomed and sexually abused by a much older man from the time she was 14. And that storyline comes full circle in this book because the man who was responsible for that is someone that re-enters her life in a pretty significant way for both Paloma and Bennett. So we have Paloma's story, and she loves being in this relationship with Bennett, but then spirals. And when she leaves the relationship, she's the one who ends it. She continues to spiral and starts drinking and partying and is known as the girl to try and sleep with on campus. And all through this, Bennett continues to love her and shows up for her when she needs him to. Meanwhile, he is struggling with a lot of things. So he is also dealing with the fact that his parents separated when he was young because his mother couldn't cope with the fact that he was autistic and didn't behave in the same way that she expected her child to. And so there's a constant source of stress for Bennett about any time he is thinking about or coming into contact with his mother. He was primarily raised eventually by his father, who is a former NHL player turned lawyer, and they have a great relationship, but somewhere between his breakup with Paloma and the present day, they've also had a falling out. So his relationship with a lot of the people who are really important to him, including his best friend, who was the MMC in the first book, who is now in a relationship, he's finding that his people are more and more difficult to read and to connect with. And so that's his source of stress. He also, doesn't love playing hockey, like he enjoys it, and he wanted to play hockey because it was a connection with his dad, but he doesn't want to go pro. And so that's another layer on all of that. It's quite a long book. It is quite an emotional book, going backwards and forwards. Do I think it needed to be this long? Probably not, but there were definitely elements in it that I really enjoyed, and I was, very emotionally invested in the characters by the end of the book as we find out exactly who is responsible for hurting Paloma when she was a child, and Bennett's response to that, and the fact that he takes on a lot of things that he doesn't need to take on. That's not his responsibility. He just needs to be there for her, and that's kind of what they work through when they reconnect in this second chance romance. And now that I've actually read it, I can actually do a proper review on NetGalley, because I hate saying that I won't be reading the book because that's just a pain in the neck. And I don't want to look flaky, but I legitimately could not read the digital arc because it was just too messy to read on my screen. But yes, I have finally done it. I am curious about the next book because I quite like Torren, who is the main character and features quite a bit in here. So we'll probably read the fourth book. No guarantee on the second book though. So that is my reading wrap up for this week. My plans for the next week, well, the plans could be interesting. So this week I have a couple of days at home. I'm hoping to finish out the Try Chapter Revisited. I'm also hoping to film a Try Chapter video, fingers crossed. Next weekend I have the hockey final, so that's going to be a little bit nuts because that's two days of two games a day and then the final on the third day. But I'm hopefully going to read something and I'm hopefully going to vlog that. So I guess we shall see, because the other thing that I really wanted to film while I was on leave was how much can I read in a day? But I don't know if that's just a bit excessive on my part to do that. Who knows? In the comments, I'd love to know, what have you been reading this week? What's been a highlight for you? Or have you read any of the books that I've talked about? Feel free to chat to me about them down below. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of pink or purple emoji for the color scheme of this book. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.